Predictive policing, orbital tracking, biometric profiling. What if I told you that Orwell's surveillance dystopia isn't coming, it's already here? That every sector is infiltrated, from healthcare and finance to education and law enforcement. That the systems we interact with every day are quietly being steered, not by governments, but by powerful, shadowy, unelected tech elites, better known as technocrats. We aren't under surveillance, we're in it.
Some areas like, the digital kill chain.
Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
Palantir is here to disrupt and, when it's necessary, to scare enemies and, on occasion, kill them.
And the person orchestrating all of this? Peter Thiel. A man who has said, quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." From the PayPal mafia to Palantir, from Palestine to Palo Alto, California, this is the story of how tech billionaires shifted from just lobbying governments to potentially replacing them. Critics have been warning that powerful tech companies, led by billionaires with agendas, are quietly embedding themselves into government systems worldwide. The official term for this phenomenon? Techno-fascism. An authoritarian model where unelected experts and corporate actors shape policy through data systems and software, bypassing democratic oversight. Historian Janice Mamura likens this to pre-World War II Japan, when elite bureaucrats prioritized economic growth over public welfare, warning that today's shift toward technocratic control could follow a similar path. Except this time, the mechanisms of control are more untouchable than any form of centralized power we've seen before. Peter Thiel was born in 1967 in Frankfurt, then West Germany. His father, Klaus Frederick Thiel, an engineer and venture capitalist, moved the family to South Africa in the early 1970s after the Nazis lost World War II. Nazism had been defeated in Europe, but it mutated and found new life under South Africa's then Prime Minister John Vorster, a former general in a pro-Hitler militia who helped turn Christian nationalism into state policy. Vorster wasn't an exception in South Africa, though. A considerable number of Nazis relocated to the country post-war. And for Klaus Thiel, apartheid was a business opportunity. Klaus brokered uranium deals with China, Israel, France, and South Africa, all while enslaved African laborers unknowingly mined radioactive materials for atomic bombs under lethal conditions, getting paid just enough to survive. The workers, whose homes sat mere miles from the radioactive waste, would die at alarming rates from radon poisoning their lungs. Meanwhile, white managers lived luxurious lifestyles far from danger and observed workers from a safe distance to limit their exposure. This elite class reportedly lived in homes perched safely on mountaintops, symbolic of their social elevation. This was the world Peter Thiel was raised in, where profit came from control, and workers were just dispensable tools in a global arms race. Years later, he would reportedly go on to call apartheid economically sound. And his college classmates recalled him dismissing apartheid as not that bad, a glimpse into the mindset that shaped his empire. Just 4 years after Thiel's birth, Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa, on June 28, 1971. His father, Elon Musk, was a well-off engineer who owned shares in a Zambian emerald mine and made a fortune off colonial resource wealth.
You see, Elon and Kimball and Tosca, they grew up with me. They only knew that they lived in a very fine home in Waterkloof. By the time they were 7, 8, 9 years old, I had given up Mercedes-Benz cars. I had moved on to Rolls-Royce cars. So they only rode in Rolls-Royce cars. They knew that if you wanted to go somewhere, you got into a twin-engined aeroplane that belonged to you, and you flew there. And then you landed on your airstrip, and you went to your lodge, if you understand. They weren't like other kids.
Mining in South Africa was lethal for workers, but a gold mine for the elites. Elon Musk boasted about the spoils, his private plane, yacht, luxury vehicles, and sprawling homes. Speaking of planes, this is Joshua Haldeman. Elon Musk's grandfather and a key influence on his worldview, distrusted conventional politics. Haldeman was one of thousands of Saskatchewan farmers who lost their land during the Dust Bowl of the Great Depression, what became known as the Dirty 30s. In the years that followed, Haldeman came to believe that an international communist conspiracy controlled the banks, the media, and universities, and was quietly running the world. He embraced technocracy, a fringe movement that believed scientists and engineers, not elected officials, should run society. Technocrats also advocated for the merger of all of North and Central America into one nation. If any of this seems familiar, it's likely because it is. In 1940, Canada banned the organization as subversive, warning that its literature revealed an intent to overthrow the government and constitution by force. However, by 1943, the ban was lifted after Technocracy Incorporated showed its commitment to the war effort by proposing total conscription, a plan aiming to fully mobilize the nation's people, industry, and finances for the cause. Musk's grandparents, who had previously been in the Canadian Nazi Party, moved to South Africa due to their support of the Afrikaner movement, hoping for greener pastures in the apartheid system. They strongly sympathized with the Nazis of Germany, something that Musk himself is accused of today.
Tonight, growing criticism over a virtual appearance by Elon Musk for Germany's far-right party known as the AfD.
Frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that.
Like Thiel, Musk grew up living what can only be described as a luxurious neo-colonial life. Both Peter and Elon attended multiple whites-only private schools that promoted Christian nationalism and Afrikaner exceptionalism. In these classrooms, the descendants of colonizers were framed as the real victims, reinforcing a worldview built on entitlement, historical revisionism, and ethno-nationalist ideology. Some of the schools enforced uniforms and used corporal punishment to maintain strict order. Thiel later said that the rigid structure left him with a lasting distaste for regimentation and conformity, an experience that would go on to shape his embrace of individualism and libertarianism. Musk, whose formative years were spent under a normalized apartheid, enjoyed the racist segregation system for 23 years before it was officially abolished. Both grew up in a country where government power depended on surveilling, restricting, and isolating the majority of the population. Cut to the late 80s and early 90s, when both men arrived in California. This is where Thiel's father, Klaus, was referred to by his colleagues as the Gestapo. Peter, whose family ran a gold mine in California, was smart, but socially withdrawn. He attended private schools and later enrolled at Stanford Law School, where he remained a solitary figure, though his interest in conservatism led him to join and later lead the Stanford College Republicans. This is where he first made a name for himself, through his book, The Diversity Myth, co-written with David Sachs, a fellow byproduct of South African apartheid. In the book, Thiel and Sachs paint diversity as a threat to meritocracy and to the intellectual foundations and future of the West. But Thiel wasn't done there. He also helped launch the Stanford Review, a publication that pushed libertarian anti-multiculturalist views. Meanwhile, Musk briefly studied at Queen's University in Canada and then transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. But by 1995, he was also in Palo Alto, supposedly for a PhD at Stanford. Just 2 days in, he dropped out and began trying to build an online business from scratch. Thiel, on the other hand, finished his graduate degree, then decided to go a different route. Instead of pursuing law, he invested in Confinity, a cryptography and payment startup. Confinity enabled digital money transfers but was still only able to make payments between a specific brand of handheld devices. What you may not know is that just next door, another startup was chasing the same goal. Except it was aiming to sync financial data across every phone. That startup was X.com, founded by Elon Musk. The two men had not only launched near-identical businesses, but also developed them on the very same street. In early 2000, they merged their companies and launched PayPal. And as we know today, the company would turn out to be extremely successful. While their collaboration may have been random, they were laying the groundwork, albeit unknowingly, for a financial empire modeled on what they knew best: centralized control with unlimited oversight by exploiting the power of data. Because Musk and Thiel weren't just partners, they were ideological twins. Both held the core belief that democracy is inefficient, and both set out to build systems to ensure the future was decided by algorithms and not laws. Thiel's ambition for PayPal was initially driven by the desire to create an alternative currency to challenge the U.S. government.
That's how Palantir got started. I mean, Palantir was just Peter Thiel and Alex basically meeting with me and saying, we got these algorithms on fraudulent transactions. We think there might be some value for the intelligence community.
PayPal wasn't just about moving money. It was about detecting fraud and building models of risk. What if they modeled the entire world the same way? With that realization, what started as a payment tool would soon become a prototype for digital surveillance infrastructure. PayPal was eventually sold to eBay for $1.2 billion in 2002, and Musk had officially become a billionaire. Thiel would go on to gain ownership in numerous companies: LinkedIn, YouTube, Meta, Lyft, SpaceX, Oculus, Airbnb, Stripe, and that's just for starters. Former employees and founders of PayPal, dubbed the PayPal Mafia, went on to run LinkedIn, YouTube, Tesla, Facebook, and venture capital funds that bankroll most of the tech you use today. But Thiel was the first to weaponize it.
The team went away and did a mock-up in 2 weeks, and then immediately we took that team and put them inside the building to work on what we call a CT counter-terrorist problem. And they just learned that business, and that became Palantir, and Palantir is worth somewhere between $10 or $20 billion today. Because the counter-terrorist problem is the same problems that banks have in fraudulent transactions and any other kind of fraudulent transaction.
After PayPal was sold to eBay, Thiel took his algorithms to the intelligence world. His next project? A company that would redefine what governments could see and what citizens couldn't hide.